In this video, we're going to cover the 5 most common lifts we do in the gym that load the back the most. They're not wrong. They're just the ones that ask the most of the back. In fact, I'm actually going to show you 4 of them. The 5th one isn't a movement per se or a lift per se, but it's this one habit that people do that really cranks on the back. And I've seen many people hurt their backs in one fell swoop in that moment doing this one thing. So stay tuned for that. Let's get rolling. All right, so we're going to cover the first of these 5. Now keep in mind they're in order, or at least rough order, of what's the least aggressive on the back, still aggressive. And then as we go through the next few, we're going to show you the most aggressive ones. So make sure you watch those because we all pretty much use these lifts. They're great, but they load the back a lot. So the first one is a leg press or hack squat. So the reason you're troubled here is because you're sitting down. So already your bum is immobilized, or your hips, they can't move. So the bum cannot absorb any shock and it can't generate power. So you're doing so with your legs. Let's walk through it right now. So she's going to unlatch this and then she's going to come, well, she's already pushed it up. She's going to start to come down. So lots of hip flexor squishing and there's lots of knee loading. Okay, perfect. So come back up. So one thing to keep in mind is when she is has her feet on here, there are going to be some people who can't keep the heel down. And if you can't keep the heel down, the forces go into the knees a lot more, but also into the back as well. So keep that in mind. So she's going to do it down where she's got a little bit of her heels coming off as she comes down. So if you have tight ankles, you might not hold it that well. Okay, so perfect. That's the one right there. So we've got that aspect. We've got the hip flexors being squished and all this pressure. The second thing that's not really seen here that you can't see is we don't know if her low back is holding a natural curve. So a lot of people let the low back curve disappear and it flattens to the bench. That's a lot of low back loading you don't want. So if you are using a machine like this, you want to be nice posture, neutral curve, tight abs. So the third thing we're going to look at now is if she's coming down on this leg press and she buckles her knees, she's going to get a lot of back forces on that as well. Perfect. Come back up. So as you can see, it is a great leg exercise. I'm not going to lie, but it's very common to use this machine for legs, but also not realize that the back is being asked a lot of at the same time. Do you cancel this workout or do you skip this machine? Absolutely not. There's lots of ways you can do this stuff and then do stuff later on to undo it, which I'll cover in different videos. But just know that this machine does put a lot of demand on your low back. Okay, so now let's cover the second exercise. So this one has a bit more back loading than the leg press or hack squat. Now, again, nothing's wrong with these movements. We're just showing you an order of lightest load to more aggressive loading, which exercises in the gym demand the most of your back. So this one is a squat, and it's the squat that has the hinge attached to it, or you might know it as keeping the knees further back, kind of at the toes or on the toes. So we're going to demonstrate that right now. So we're only using this because I'm going to ask you to strike a few spine positions that you wouldn't want to strike with a 45-pound bar on your neck. So that's why we're using this lat pull down bar versus a regular bar. So first thing is she's going to do the squat. So she just goes into a regular hinge squat, right? So her knees are around the toes there. Yep, she'll go ahead and do one more. She'll strike a pose down there. And you can see how the bar is here and her fulcrum or center point is here. So it's like bar to tailbone, right? So if you drew a line down here and then drew it inwards, the bar is quite far away. Perfect, stand back up. So it's already being loaded. If you've got the abs to do it, fantastic. There's nothing wrong with this move at all. Now, when people do this move, some people are unaware that they're spine moves. So that back loading is the first aspect or the first element of the back loading. But there's 2 other ways people add even more aggressive loads to their back and ask their back to carry a lot of the weight on their neck. So she's going to go down into a squat and she's going to just very gently rotate her pelvis a little bit to try to support more of the weight if it was really heavy. So go ahead, deep breath in, she's going down, and then she's going to, yeah. So that's one way it happens, it grounds. Perfect, stand back up. She's going to demonstrate that again, and rather than tucking under, she's going to go and do an anterior tilt, or she's going to rotate it back. A lot of people will do that to help support the weight, so go ahead. So she's going to come down, and then she's going to bring it back that way. Perfect. So right around this region here, stand back up, around the SI joint, you see this little bit of a crank, okay? So you don't want to do that. That's like another aspect of loading on your back. The third one, which happens sometimes when you're standing up before your first squat, but sometimes on the way down, is where you try to banana your back, but it's from the mid back where the QL inserts to the rib cage. If you just try to hyper crank, but you're moving the low back too much. So let's give a demonstration of that one. She's going to go down, and there she is. Perfect. She's trying to stay. This is fantastic what she just did. She tried to stay more upright, which a lot of people do at the expense of the banana back. Fantastic. So as you can see, this is a great move. The squats are a great move. All kinds of squats are great, but they load the back a lot. If you add in those two mistakes, they load it even more. So just be mindful. Make sure you have the abs to support the weight when doing this type of squat. Okay, so the third exercise, now we're getting a bit more loading than the squat. So the third exercise now is called the Romanian deadlift. Now, if you're doing it in more of its purest form, then the shin bone has no movement forward. So we're going to show you that right now. So Romanian deadlift is where you pretty much stick the bum out and fold over. She's going to do that, and then she's just going to stop right there. So what you're seeing here is a vertical shin, right, and the bum out. So for where the bar is to her tailbone, it's quite far away. So when you're loading yourself like that, you get a lot of weight, a lot of abs to support this load. Perfect. So come back up. So that's the first aspect of loading for the Romanian deadlift. Now, similar to the hinge squat, you can make the spine mistakes that we just covered. So I'm just going to quickly recap a couple of those. So she's going to go back to the Romanian deadlift. Now she's going to just kind of tilt her pelvis here so that you can make that mistake. Now she's going to come back up. Now she's going to go back down and tilt her pelvis the other way. And yes, hyper torque it. And then she can do the same from her rib cage here. Perfect. Stand back up. So there's lots of loading going on in the back here, mistake or no mistake. The other aspect of the Romanian deadlift that challenges people's backs is if they overstretch the muscles under the bum, the hip rotator muscles. You can also begin to get either bum pain, but also pain that could travel to the back as well. So she's going to go back into the Romanian deadlift, and you can just see here how her bum now is stretched. So if you, let's just say she's here, right? And that's for feeling the slight stretch in her bum. If she were to drop down 1 more inch and overstretch, she can agitate that area or overstretch those muscles. Perfect. And then she can start to create damage in that area, and maybe it thickens and starts to create hip or back problems. So the Romanian deadlift has a lot of forces added to it. And that, she's got a regular grip. What if somebody's sticking up this barbell in the gym and they go into a wide grip? Now, when she goes back into an RDL, she's going to fold down, right? Go ahead. Now, her lats require more flexibility, and they're going to pull into this sheath and into the low back, into the bum. So if they're not that loose, she's going to have trouble maintaining her posture here, or she's going to get an extra stretch in her low back. Perfect. So these are a whole bunch of moving parts to a Romanian deadlift. By the way, this is a great move in the gym if you have tight hamstrings. You can absolutely do it. But it does load the back in one of the most significant ways. So just be mindful when doing it to always keep your spine in neutral and have enough ab strength to support the weight that you're currently holding. Okay, so now we're moving on to number 4. Similar to number 3, the Romanian deadlift, we're going to add in one element. So a lot of us, when we train in the gym, like to work our back, and a lot of us do something called a bent row. If you're doing the bent row and you're trying to get the biggest bang for your buck and the most development in your back, most of us, we strike a Romanian deadlift posture first, and then we row from that posture. So let's have a look at that. She's going to go into the Romanian deadlift. She's got the nice hinge. So we already have the RDL, right? So the loading from here to the bar is pretty far away. Now she's going to add another element now where she has to row. So now her back needs a lot of support. Perfect. Stand back up. So that's the second, or that's the extra piece to the Romanian deadlift that adds more forces to your back. All that means is you need stronger abs to support the weight. You don't want to really add too much weight where you're making a mistake. Here's a cool part. We're going to cover with you 2 of the common errors that you often see people make during this exercise that amplifies or adds even way more forces to the back that you do not want. They do not help the cause for anything in your low back when you do this. So she's going to go ahead and do this kind of a pumping one where she's going to try to row up, but she's going to jerk her back. So you see how she's arching her back. So down, and she throws up into it. Yeah, exactly. So she'll do one more. Excellent. Stand back up. Fantastic. So what you're doing there is rather than just rowing with the mid-back muscles, you're asking your low back to help move the weight. Could be too heavy, could just be a habit we develop, either or, just be mindful of it. The second one is actually one I've even been guilty of. It's kind of funny when I see myself doing it, but I'll strike the Romanian deadlift posture. But then when I start doing my row, I've changed my position just to make it easier on me or less backloading. So we're going to show you that one right now. She goes into RDL. So that's what she would row with normally. But let's say the weight's too heavy or she's tired or what have you. She's going to change her mechanics, shove her knees like that, hair forward. Now she rows. Very commonly done, also. Very commonly done in the gym. So be mindful of those because you've got RDL loading. Now you've got the pulling of the bar loading. Now you've got the banana back loading as well, or the snapping of the low back to help get the weight. If you add all four of those in, it starts to pile up, right? I'm sure the last two you probably don't do, but if you happen to do them or catch yourself, make sure you correct that. So there you have it. That is number 4. The 5th one is coming up, and you don't want to miss it because I recommend you don't do this one ever. All right, so earlier I promised you one of these exercises was not only extremely aggressive on the back, but it's the one exercise you want to get rid of. So you get to do the other 4 and just be mindful. That's great. This one you're about to see, you want this one gone from any trade if you happen to do it. So we're going to show you first how it happens on the shoulder press. You're going to put the bar, sort of military press. The bar is here. She's going to, before she starts, she's going to arch back a little bit and lift her chin up to clear, the bar can clear her face. So you can go up and back. Now, if somebody has a tight chest or not enough abdominal strength, what they're going to do is they're going to play with the hips. So they'll usually push the hips forward and compress the back. So think of, yes, exactly. Think of Superman. So go ahead and let's repeat that in slow motion. So as she's coming up about halfway here, with 2/3 out, she's going to pulse forward. Go ahead. So exactly, there you have it. So what it is a tuck under. It's like you're just squishing into the SI joint and into the low back. So you'd never want to be lowering any weights in doing that. Now, where else this happens, I'll take the bar, where else this happens is in the kettlebell swing. So if you're doing kettlebell swings, you will see somebody finish the extension phase. And rather than squeezing the bum to propel the kettlebell, they'll do the exact same tuck under. Go ahead. Yeah, and we don't even want to do this demo that well because we don't want to over-exaggerate it because it's not even a comfortable feeling. But go ahead one more time. So you can see rather than her hips getting to neutral, so stop at neutral, she will go past neutral. Perfect. So it happens there. But there's one more place it happens. In fact, there's 2 more places. We're going to give you this added bonus right now. She's going to put this bar on her neck, but she's going to squat. Okay? Now, when people do squats and when people do deadlifts, they also do a tuck under. It's not super common, but it's done. She's going to demonstrate herself going into a squat. Doesn't really matter the kind of squat. And rather than coming up into extension, she's going to tuck under. Just a small one. We don't want to do a bit more. She comes up and tucks under. Perfect. Happens in the deadlift. Now, you may be unaware of what neutral is, and you may tuck under thinking that's extension. Totally fine. Just be very careful. This movement, you want completely gone from any training in the gym. No matter what exercise you do not want to squish the low back like that by driving your pelvis past the neutral position while supporting a heavy weight.